ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaskar my dear friends, this is video number 6 on the wonders of bioelectricity in human beings. This video starts with benefits of interaction with virtuous persons. The idiosphere of each individual exercises an influence on the character, behavior, and temperament of the other persons coming in contact. Consequences of keeping good or bad company are well known. Living in the company of bad people, one adopts their addictions, mannerism, whereas association with virtuous persons reforms an immoral individual. Man builds an idiosphere of bioelectric charges around his body, conforming his values and state of physical health. As the fragrance of a flower diffusing around it is caught by the respiratory organs of people entering the field of fragrance, the particles of various human ionospheres are being incessantly mutually absorbed by individuals entering each other's field. As discussed earlier, this interaction is also a factor responsible for contagious and infectious diseases. Medical science tells about the presence of virus and bacteria around a sick person and advises healthy persons to avoid their close vicinity. While treating a patient, the doctors too are very cautious about catching infections and take care of their personal cleanliness and sterilization of instrument. Nevertheless, today the conception of contagion and infection on account of contact with diseased persons needs a different interpretation. Significant characteristics of all living beings are their sensory organs of locomotion, eyes, mouth, etc. These do not exist in what we call germs and bacteria. In color, form or shape too, the latter are not comparable to any living species. The modalities of spreading of diseases such as epidemics are not convincingly established. Why are the disease producing microorganisms selective in choosing their victims? We still do not fully know why some persons become sick in a healthy environment without coming in contact with any diseased person, whereas there are many who remain immune to sickness in the worst infected environment. We find the members of hospital establishment rarely falling sick. Many social workers helping people during epidemics to continue to remain healthy. If bacteria and virus were animate beings like worms, these would not spare anyone. Like ants and worms, they would creep into each and every body. Within the confines of a home, a sick family member does not make everyone sick. It is seen that people with strong willpower or physically and mentally vigorous, courageous, bold persons who are not afraid of falling sick most often remain resistant to diseases even in the seasons and areas sensitive to virus attacks, whereas those who are timid and apprehensive become an easy victim. Why should this happen? This cannot be explained even by any hypothesis in genetics. There also are many methods of healing defying explanation by modern medical science. For example, how do faith healing, Reiki, pranic healing, distant healing, autosuggestion, etc. work? What is the explanation for the placebo effect? As a matter of fact, the so-called microorganisms are like particles or microfields of bioelectricity having positive and negative polarity. The bioelectrical charge of foreboding persons attract these particles, whereas those of fearlessness repels them and serves as an insulated shield for protection against infection and disease. It may be erroneous to assume that only diseased persons are carriers of germs of diseases. As water keeps on evaporating all around us, the bioelectric particles from the ionospheres of all living beings also continuously diffuse around, irrespective of the health of the individual. Since the members of some subhuman species of the animal world do not possess the insulating shield of strong will, they are always influenced by the bioelectric field of the environment around them. For example, naturally aggressive and violent animals like tigers to behave timidly in the area around hermitage of a holy man. Man, on the other hand, is blessed by God with tremendous power of will. Unless voluntarily desired, he cannot be influenced by an alien environment contrary to his temperament. Man has the freedom to accept or reject anything as he likes. However, the common man has very little willpower to resist influence of an external ideology. As a consequence, he gets easily impressed by new information or environment. However, if one is unable to comprehend anything about latter, or in spite of understanding is capable of resisting the influence firmly, the new environment has little impact on him. For instance, though people are generally afraid of darkness, the Aborigines working in dense forests do not find any reason to fear dark places. Overcoming fear of darkness, a strong-willed person who can move about in pitch-dark places. Powerful ideologies do not always influence the minds of weak-willed, wild or stubborn persons. Doctrines of Mahatma Gandhi changed the life of numerous individuals but did not have any impact on the many labored and ignorant persons living in his company. Many amongst his strong opponents too remained impervious to his great ideologies, though their personalities were inferior to him in every respect. Amongst these was one of his own sons. The foregoing discussion is meant to explain that either on account of total ignorance and inert level of bioelectricity or because of a strong will and powerful bioenergy, one may remain uninfluenced by bioelectric fields of other persons. However, with very few exceptions in a million, the common man remains vulnerable to external influences. Minds of children are neither completely devoid of knowledge and experience, since at that tender age the traits brought forward from previous births are not totally subdued by new experiences, nor do they have a developed strong will to resist impressions of new environments. Consequently, their personalities get invariably molded according to the company of associated people. However, here too there are a few exceptions where the character and temperament of a child is found contrary to those of the parents and people around him or her. It should be taken as a consequence of some extraordinary traits brought forward from previous births. Barring the exceptions, the majority of people get influenced by the company they get associated with. The question arises when two individuals interact, who is likely to influence whom. In this case, a mental tug of war takes place between the willpowers of the two persons. Who overshadows whom depends on the capacity, potentiality, and strength of biomagnetic fields of the involved persons. The individual with the iodosphere having stronger biomagnetic force dominates. Every day one interacts with many persons, but either because of short time or extent of interaction or because of weaker level of their ordinary bioelectric particles which are repulsed by his biomagnetic field, their bioenergy hardly leaves an impression on him. On the other hand, an extraordinarily good or bad individual having a strong iodosphere creates a lasting influence on the common man. Seeds of inherent traits in human subconscious in an individual are attracted towards persons having similar temperament and grow into trees in their company. In course of an interaction between two individuals, until their experience in life matures into wisdom, there remains a possibility of either of them influencing the other one. In other words, in order to avoid getting swayed by an alien influence, it is necessary to have discretion, and this discretion is developed by experience. That's why the majority of teenagers are unable to resist the prevailing trends and is carried away by the so-called modern trends prevalent amongst the masses. Many among us, the old persons, to remain immature from the point of view of self-discretion and determination. They get easily influenced by others. However, once an individual vows for an objective, takes a decision on a precise course of action to be followed for his aims and objectives in life, and adopts corresponding principles as guidelines, he is influenced only by subjects related to his ideology and becomes impervious to the rest. Individuals truly dedicated to a cause are not detracted by others. In order to choose a lifestyle for achieving a particular objective, one should identify and choose talented, successful individuals in the related field as role models and interact with them with devout respect and humility and learn from them sincerely. Humility in interaction enhances the power of receptivity. There is a saying in Sanskrit, Tadavidhi Parnapatena Pariparsena Sevaya, meaning for seeking knowledge from a guru, humbly salute, serve, and then inquire. An interaction carried out with egoism and arrogance means filling oneself with a force of resistance. It does not bring any benefit. Therefore, for seeking knowledge, one should have faith in the wisdom of the teacher and approach him or her with all humility and a dedicated learner's attitude. It increases the biomagnetism of the seeker and makes it possible to attract the waves of knowledge from the idiosphere of the Guru spiritual master. That's why merely a visit of a disciple to a pious sage makes the former inwardly peaceful and intellectually elevated. Chapter 23, The Power of Noble Guru and Initiation in Spirituality. Collective focus and interactive endeavors of two individuals on one particular objective produce exceptionally high benefits as compared to the outcome of their independent efforts. Concentrate concentration on the same subject binds their consciousness together in a unified field of idiospheres. Consequently, the interchange of knowledge between them takes place in totality. Each one gets the advantage of the cumulative experience of the other person. The information goes to great depth in the subconscious of the interacting person. There is a great difference between interactions related to worldly affairs and exchange of wisdom of spirituality. The realm of education pertaining to ordinary activities in the world and social relationships remains confined only to reactions at the superficial level of intellect. The interaction involving communication of materialistic knowledge of the giver and the intellect of the receiver conditioned to extravert thinking influence the psyche only superficially. Though the sincerely given and acquired knowledge becomes firmly rooted in mind, its effect on man is not as profound as the extrasensorily transmitted wisdom of spirituality. The status of spiritual evolution of the inner self is independent of education or intelligence quotient (IQ) of a person. Most of the great saints and seer sages of the world were uneducated persons. An interaction between the guru and the disciple on wisdom of spirituality is not an exchange of material knowledge by word of mouth. Vachika, the bits of wisdom and talent in spirituality have a million-fold potentiality for development of supernormal talents and creativity than any knowledge of the material world. Just a fraction of wisdom bestowed extrasensorily by the Guru and imbibed by the inner subconscious of the disciple with faith and sincerity is capable of growing to cover the entire wisdom spiritual potentiality of the Guru. The sacramental rite of spiritual initiation, Diksha, has been assigned a paramount status among the rituals of all religions. Overtaking the outward mind and intellect, the transmission of spirituality from guru to disciple takes place at the level of the subconscious and unconscious cores of mind and the self, chitta and ahamkara. In the process of initiation, a noble guru uses his awakened spiritual power to interact with the disciple at great depths of subconscious level. He implants seeds, transmits bioelectric currents of his own spiritually activated life force in the subconscious of the disciple. These seeds get planted forever to germinate in the subconscious of the disciple. If nourished properly by devoutly following the disciplines of initiation, these seeds grow and fructify within a short time. Otherwise, too, these are not wasted and lie dormant, awaiting a suitable environment for germination and growth. It is a pity that nowadays certain excessively vain and ambitious individuals dare undertake the complex and formidable ritual of giving initiation. For monetary gains, they make a farce of even such high-ranking yogic spiritual experiments as Diksha, making latter a subject of ridicule among the masses. The wisdom of spirituality given by a competent guru is never wasted. A noble guru bestows Shaktipada, extrasensory transmission of spiritual power upon deserving disciples. Its effects could be seen within a very short period. The secret process of Shaktipada can bring out a metamorphosis in the entire personality of the disciple. Many yogis in India are capable of awakening the Kundalini, also known as serpentine fire or the source of miraculous vital spiritual energy of man simply by touching his head. The author has personally come across great spiritual masters and yogis who can electrify their bodies by activating the hidden force of their tremendous soul power Atma Teja. In this state, touching his or her bioelectrically charged body gives a shock like a live wire. However, the reader need not go into the details of those advanced practices of yoga. It is sufficient to understand that humility and sincerity is essential for taking advantage of a good company. One must not miss any opportunity for interacting with strong-willed, virtuous persons, even if it requires enduring discomfort and inconvenience. Given an opportunity to live and work with great personalities, sagacious thinkers, one should overlook personal inconveniences and discomfort since the benefits of association with them are beyond imagination. The proverbial stone Paris referred to in the allegoric scriptures mythology is believed to possess the Midas touch. It is said that any metal touched by Paris changes into gold. Such a stone, even if it exists somewhere, would make one only wealthy in this world, but the benefits of interaction with an evolved soul are far beyond, to the extent of enabling a common man communicate with God. The maximum advantage from virtuous interaction, satsang with a holy person can be derived in meeting the individual personally. Nevertheless, if it is not possible, there are other ways for taking advantage of the wisdom of great men. For seeking clarifications on doubts, one may correspond with the living great persons. Handwritten papers of enlightened persons too are a source of bioelectric charges of motivation. In course of writing, paper and ink handled by a saint say becomes charged with bioelectric impulses of his or her thoughts. Liquid in a ink being a good conductor of bioelectricity absorbs the intensity of the thoughts of the writer. Thus, reading his or her letter may amount to meeting the writer to some extent. Original manuscripts of ancient texts are considered valuable since, besides the contents of knowledge, they also contain live particles of the thoughts of their writers. Original paintings of great artists and personal articles of renowned historical persons are regarded precious for the same reason. While reading a letter from a beloved person, one feels the presence of writer. Exchange of letters with enlightened person is therefore an effective way of virtuous interaction. Satsanga having been copied from manuscripts, the printed words in books may also carry some bioelectric particles that the writer had transmitted during the composition of the text. An engrossed reading of such a book evokes the same thoughts which the author had at the time of writing. In the book Parakala Parvesha, Prakala Parvesha, the art of entering someone else's body. This author has mentioned about the indestructibility of thoughts. It has been earlier discussed how innumerable thoughts emanating from the minds of people keep on hovering in space and rush to interact with similar thoughts arising in the minds of an individual thinker. Thoughts travel at tremendous velocity comparable to that of light. In fraction of a second, a thought can go several times around the earth. In ancient times, in absence of any modern means of communication, the ideologies of great religions had rapidly spread around the world. The impact of a piece of literature on the reader is commensurate with the depth of emotional input of its author. Similar is the case of the impact of a piece of art upon its viewers. Books written by people who had strong faith in their ideologies have moved masses around the world. Some examples are Thus Capital of Karl Marx, Democracy of Rousseau, Uncle Tom's Cabin of Harriet Stowe, and the recent Harry Potter series of Rowling. Casually written books or any work of literature generates very little influence on the reader. Sometimes, in spite of easy language, the reader finds it difficulty to grasp the purport of the writer. Lovers of books are advised to read only those books which contain authentic information or thoughts conveyed by experienced writers. For drawing greater advantage, the reader is advised to conceptualize as though the contents are being read by the author seated in front. In this manner, books too can serve the purpose of a satsanga, the spiritual purpose of virtuous interaction. Satsanga is to ignite the virtuosity of an individual with the help of the soul power, whereas serious contemplation on ideas and intensive thinking for research require a lonely place and a quiet environment. The soul power dormant within self can be more effectively brought out by interacting with spiritually enlightened people in a group. In general, the combined force generated by a large number of individuals concentrating on one subject creates tremendous impact. The enhanced energy so created fills everyone present in the large assembly with enthusiasm and drive for activity. Participation in public meetings, processions, committee meetings, cabinet meetings of government, and meetings of arbitrators serve as a more fruitful purpose than deliberating on a subject individually in seclusion. Similarly, congregations, mass prayers, group discussions on virtuosity, and singing of hymns by many persons in unison provide greater motivation. However, it is to be kept in mind that participation in such gathering is only a preliminary step towards the goal. For reaching the core of the subject and grasping its fundamentals, one does require contemplation in solitude. Chapter number 24. Elevate your soul power. If our existence matters, we are often required in some form or the other to influence or impress upon someone to achieve our objective. One cannot do it in absence of adequate inherent soul power. The power of soul of man is reflected in the personality of man. An individual having a dead face, lusterless eyes, and a voice laden with inferiority is always treated with disrespect. People are naturally attracted towards centers of power where they expect to get something or the other to meet their requirement. It is in the common nature of man to acquire more things than to give. Informity in an individual appears to invite help, which means giving or parting with something which is personal. Therefore, everyone tends to avoid an unhappy person. Looking at a lustreless, unhappy face makes one feel depressed. On the other hand, the radiance of a gleaming face appears to radiate happiness. People happily come forward to help a person having a vibrant personality. The subconscious mind receives the message that such persons are capable of giving. Wherever an individual having a powerful, impressive personality goes, he is welcomed and treated with respect. His advice is considered valuable. People having views contrary to such persons feel diffident in expressing their dissidence in his presence, and everyone is eager to toe his line. Only such individuals who have a bioelectric radiate personality by virtue of the power of their awakened inner self become influential preachers or attain outstanding success in their personal, social, and professional lives as per their chosen focus. On the contrary, an individual having a lackluster, lethargic personality always remains unhappy and does not bring cheer to anyone meeting him. Therefore, for success in any field of life, it is essential to develop an influential personality by enhancing inner strength, developing Atma Viswasa, unshakable confidence in one's inner strength is the key to awakening the soul power, Atam Shakti, and hence augmenting the potentiality of personal bioelectricity, Atam Vidyuta. Considering oneself a trifling, weak, worthless, or inferior individual is like committing suicide. The author reminds every member of the human society that he or she is not a petty creature. Every human being is the crown prince of the supreme king. Has God have taken so much care in creating the precious life form like mankind to let man live like a worm and die like a dog? Certainly not. It is a blunder, a crime, a sin on our part if we ignore the dignity of our soul. But one should also remember that it is absurd to conceive or confuse self respect as equivalent to ego or sense of superiority over others. Considering material things as personal and being proud of relationships with the things of the world is ignorance. In reality, everyone is a manifestation of the immortal soul. The true self is not the body with which one relates to the material world. Self respect does not mean being respectful to one's body and proud of its faculties and possessions. Introspection of the divine attributes of the soul is an essential step forward, knowing one's true self, Atam Darshana. This itself is an act of virtue, duty, and respecting the real self, Atam Sammana. In true sense, it is foolish to equate egoism with self respect. One who believes in having a holy spark of divinity within self cannot be disrespectful, disrespectful disrespectful to one's own self and to others. On the other hand, considering oneself as a non-entity means distancing oneself from God. Keep on repeating the mantra, I am a bit of divinity. Therefore, all my thoughts and acts should be pure. I have inner power to do that. As an auto suggestion, it will give you miraculous power. So, the principal mantra of Vedas is well known. Literally, it means so that God is I, the real self. In other words, it signifies that I, the individual real self, exists as part of His omnipresence. The deeper this thought gets inculcated in the mind, the greater would become the luminescence of the power of soul within. In the book Who Am I? This author has described a detailed exercise for such realization. This begins with conceptualizing one's soul as a bright, luminous star like sun, visualizing the world, people, places, things, and events related to you, rotating around it like planets moving around the sun. Cultivating purity of thoughts assuredly helps awakening the otherwise dormant power of soul. In the book Swasthya or Sundar Banane Ki Adbhut Vidya pertaining to the hidden science of health and beauty, the author has discussed how the celestial effulgence of soul is covered by the smoke of vicious thinking, ignorance, and untoward impressions. If one could deviate from thoughts and actions driven by sensual lust, infatuation, arrogance, anger, greed, jealousy, animosity, sin, and hypocrisy, and instead adopt love for humankind, virtues, compassion, and benevolence in life, the excellence of soul would appear in the sense organs, making the individual extraordinarily influential. How to interact with self respect. As discussed earlier, for utilizing the potential of the soul imbibed in the inner self, it is absolutely necessary to safeguard self respect. That is the respect for the real self. A few simple tips will help the reader in achieving this objective. Meet a person respectfully, but never consider one's own self inferior. Be humble while talking, but do not adopt a niggling attitude. While meeting a person, take a seat commensurate with your status. Taking a back seat or sitting at a lower level, even when the front ones are available, should be avoided. Do not address a person with highly adulatory words. Use a normal, respectful expression. Talking cheerfully with a slight smile on face creates a good impression. A little smile on the face enables the facial muscles to draw biomagnetic energy to the face, making it more attractive and impressive. Besides, biomagnetizing the lips and cheeks, a large part of this energy enters the eyes, making these sparkle. Scientists have yet to comprehend fully the factors responsible for the natural power of attraction of a smiling or laughing face. Nevertheless, it has been established that while smiling or laughing, the facial muscles accumulate much more energy, creating an instant soothing impression on the onlooker than what the normal expression of the same face would do. The appearance of this extraordinary energy on face also has a beneficial effect on circulation of blood and nervous system of body. Hence, while meeting a person for some important purpose, one should not appear morose but be cheerful and relaxed. For equality of terms, one should not interact timid, timidly. Look softly into the eyes of the other person. Staring arrogantly into someone's eyes creates a bad impression. On the other hand, one can sufficiently influence others by talking easily and dispassionately and looking into the eyes of others with self confidence. But it must be remembered that nothing should be artificial or imposing. Imposing all these suggested acts and mannerisms should be natural. For this, it is essential that one refines and dignifies one's qualities and conduct worth the glory of soul. So here ends this video and the complete book. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Namaskar my dear friend. Thanks a lot. Namaskar.